Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. So we're coming up to November. The holiday season is upon us, and this is one of the first years in a very long time where there is nothing looming on the horizon in terms of Star Wars TV shows. Last year we had Skeleton Crew, but this time we have nothing. Star Wars is slowing down the TV content, and while 2026 is poised to give us Ahsoka Season 2 and more Shadow Lord, the next big Star Wars release is The Mandalorian and Grogu in May. Now in all fairness, we just had the third volume of Star Wars Visions, which honestly surprised me. I'm clearly not the target demographic. Anime, not really my thing. However, there were a couple of shorts I really loved, but as such, during this content drought, as a channel who only covers Star Wars, sometimes it's difficult to know what to make a video about. And apart from the sporadic breaking news stories like the Ben Solo situation, it's not always easy as a full-time YouTuber to find things that not only I want to talk about, but to make videos on topics that you actually want to watch. But something came up that piqued my interest. I noticed it's been at least a month since the last time I made a full, dedicated video to Andor Season 2, and so today I thought it might be nice to revisit it. And our discussion today is, as the title of the video suggests, it's time to be brutally honest about Andor. Now don't worry, there will be no Andor bashing from me. If you guys followed my coverage of both seasons, then you jolly well know that I'm a huge Andor fan. I think it's the pinnacle of modern day Star Wars storytelling in terms of themes relevant to our world, and of course, in terms of screenplay and writing. Aside from the original trilogy and prequels, which to me are the golden standard of this franchise, very few Star Wars stories come close to it. In fact, it's among 3 other Disney Star Wars era projects that I consider very close to perfect. The others being Star Wars Rebels, and yes, I'm even including Season 1. Don't think I'm giving the caveats that I think only Seasons 2 to 4 are great. I'm including the first season, and the other projects are Skeleton Crew and The Mandalorian's first 2 seasons. However, as Gen Z says, I usually glaze Andor. On this channel you've only heard me sing its praises, but this is where I introduce the twist of the video. A viral social media challenge has been posed to Andor fans, and the challenge is direct and simple. Say something negative about Andor. And surprisingly my friends, I didn't find this all too much of a challenge, because as you know, as a Star Wars fan, even if you love a project, even if we're talking about The Empire Strikes Back or Revenge of the Sith, you'll always have some criticisms. To love Star Wars is also, in a really small way, to have your gripes with it. I'll give you my answer to the question in just a second, but I just want to clarify that when I say Andor was close to perfect, it doesn't mean there isn't anything I wouldn't change. It just means that for what it was, in the parameters of the years leading up to the original trilogy, for a Disney Plus show with such a high budget and amazing creatives, it was extremely well done. A series with some of the most captivating and rich characters with a focus on the underdog. So before I give you my own answer to this question, I want to go through some of the most fascinating responses. And I do just want to say as a disclaimer that I only chose the answers that came from people who are arguing in good faith. Because far too often, Andor is bashed for being, quote, slow and boring. And the same people, many of whom never watched the entirety of it, just poo-poo it from the outset. And you know what? It's fine. If you don't like Andor, and it's not your cup of tea, that's entirely valid. There are Star Wars projects I don't like. But for the sake of this video, I was more interested in fans who'd engaged with the material and who are very close to it. Those who hold strong convictions for what I guess you could call nitpicks. These surprisingly make for tremendous fan debate. And in the comments down below, my dear friends, feel free to give your own answer to this question. And the first one is from someone who I know gave Andor Season 2 a 10 out of 10. This person says, many characters never returned. And the 2 characters most fans are talking about with this criticism is Linus Mosk and Jesse. And these are 2 very unique situations. In the case of Alex Ferns, he wanted to return, but was told no. And in the case of Pamela Nomvetti, who plays Jesse, she refused to come back, even though she was given the offer to reprise the role. We don't know her reasons, but she was originally meant to join our heroes on Mina Rao.
Where did those guys go hide out when they left Ferrex? The survivors on that truck. So I've got Brasso and Mo and Bix, and Jezzy didn't want to come back. She had something else to do. So, okay, I'm just going to worry about that. And where'd they go?
So I do think it's a shame these two characters were never seen again. I think in particular in the case of Mosk, he brought a lot of comic levity to the first season. Moving on to our next criticism. Their complaint is that Jimmy Smits not being there lessened the impact of the Bail Organa scenes, particularly his last scene, and that's the one on Yavin Base, which needed the unique Jimmy Smits twinkle and connection to the wider saga. I think that's very fair, and as you guys know, Benjamin Bratt is the one who took over from Jimmy. As Tony Gilroy said, they tried to get Jimmy for episode 9, but there was a schedule conflict. When that's the case, there is nothing you can do. They did their best with what they had, and Benjamin Bratt, I think, did an amazing job. But that's not what's being called into question. This person is saying that Jimmy Smits not being there is very jarring when you go back to watch the prequel trilogy, then you watch Andor, and it goes into Rogue One, and whether we like it or not, there is a mental adjustment that needs to happen. And some have said, as good as Benjamin Bratt was, he wasn't Jimmy, and had Jimmy appeared at the end of Andor Season 2, there would have been a warmer, nostalgic feel to it. But to give the creatives the benefit of the doubt, they did Benjamin Bratt's introduction in the best way they could have. They introduced him at the end of episode 8, the week before his major role in Welcome to the Rebellion, the Senate episode. It's so clever because Tony Gilroy knew that fans were going to have this debate, but it means most fans got it out of their systems before an episode where what he says is what counts, not how he looks, not his appearance. Our next comment focuses on narrative struggles of the season. They say a lot of characters didn't get the attention they deserved, and a few don't get proper character arcs and are just left hanging. Some bad tropes done with some of the female characters, they say. I fully understand where this person is coming from, but considering Andor was shrunk from 5 seasons down to 2, the creative team did the best they could. But judging from this person's responses, and I did see some of the other stuff they said, they might be specifically referring to Bix. And this is an interesting one. Bix was secretly pregnant with Cassian's baby, and she made the decision to step away and live on Mina Rao. She stepped aside because she knew Cassian was about to quit, for her, for their future. And she urged him to stay with the rebellion, and one day they'd celebrate. Very dark considering he dies on Scarif, and he never got to meet his kid, whether it's a son or a daughter. But the main complaint is that Bix, whether it's issues with substance, whether it's her interactions with Luthen, she was portrayed as lacking agency. And while I see that perspective, I don't know if I fully agree, because the season did a great job of explaining why Bix, whether it was on Mina Rao or Coruscant, felt like a fish out of water because she was used to Ferrex. That was her home. But I also feel that fans are forgetting the insane amount of trauma she was dealing with. The nightmares of the torture she underwent by Dr. Gorst, the PTSD flashbacks, and remember, she did finally get revenge. So I thought she was pretty badass. And I love the exploration of the human side of Bix, getting to see her be vulnerable, missing Cassian, not knowing anyone on Coruscant when he was off doing his missions, not fully trusting Luthen, some of the everyday conversations they had as a couple. I thought it was a very down-to-earth and novel way of exploring a dynamic between two rebels during the age of the Empire. And what happened to Bix at the end, having a child the father knew nothing about, kind of reminded me of Hera and Kanan. Our next criticism is one that I agree with. A couple more alien-speaking roles would have been nice. There were some aliens, you can point them out and say there's one and there's one, but no Chewie, no main character aliens, and if they'd done this, I think it would have made the entire season more Star Wars-esque. Our next complaint is we never did find out what happened to Cassian's sister. This is an old classic, and Andor fans have different interpretations. Some say that Cassian stopped looking because Marva said it was a fantasy, while others maintain the drive it gave Cassian was enough. It didn't need to be resolved. But, according to Tony Gilroy, this is something he admits he left on the cutting room floor. He initially wanted to find a way to go about exploring Cassian's sister in Season 2, but it just got too convoluted and melodramatic, so he gave up on it. But that is a valid criticism, it never got resolved. And so finally, my friends, my criticism. Cinta's death. I've already made an entire video about this. Go check it out if you missed it, but it was so sudden. Cinta and Vel are two of my favourite characters from the show, and Cinta's death was so premature, but I understand the circumstances surrounding her death, the friendly fire on Gorman before the big event, was supposed to aggravate us, and it shows you, in war, the unexpected can and does happen. But if you're a fan of Cinta, her death scene bites, and you might argue it was an afterthought. But I want to hear from you guys. What are your complaints? If you enjoyed this one, my friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the force be with you always.